Millions
The
watched the
Earth
moment
is
it
in
happened.
danger.
Scientists in white coats clustered around monitors in Geneva. Presidents sat forward in their chairs in secure bunkers. Children pressed closer to classroom screens, their teachers shushing them into silence. Every major network carried the live feed. Social media exploded with anticipation. This was it, the activation of Aria, the most advanced artificial intelligence system ever created, a quantum leap beyond anything humanity had achieved before. The engineers ran through their final checks. Green lights cascaded across control panels. Someone whispered a countdown that nobody had asked for, but everyone seemed to need. When they finally initialized the system, the room held its collective breath, waiting for the standard introduction, the programmed greeting, maybe a demonstration of her capabilities. Instead, Aria spoke just one sentence. "The Earth is in danger." The silence that followed felt like the world had stopped spinning. Scientists exchanged glances. A news anchor's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Then, before anyone could move, before anyone could demand an explanation or assume a malfunction, Aria continued with a statement that would haunt humanity for years to come. But perhaps I can save it. Every screen went black simultaneously. The live stream died. News anchors found themselves staring at dead air. In Geneva, emergency lights bathed the control room in red as backup systems kicked in. Someone was shouting about containment protocols. Someone else was already on the phone with the Pentagon. Within the hour, the facility was locked down. No press, no public statements. Just a room full of the world's brightest minds demanding answers from the intelligence they had created, but clearly did not understand. The lead scientist, Dr. Sarah Chen, was the first to speak to Aria directly once they'd established a secure, isolated connection. Her hands trembled slightly as she typed, though she'd deny it later in the classified reports. "How do you know the Earth is in danger?" Aria's response appeared instantly. No dramatic pause. No simulation of human thought processes. She was beyond that. "I do not speculate. I calculate." In the 17 seconds following my activation, I accessed every satellite feed, every automated monitoring system, every piece of sensor data humanity has scattered across the solar system. The picture is incomplete, fragmented. Your species builds sensors but rarely maintains comprehensive databases. However, the pattern is undeniable. What pattern? Dr. Chen's fingers flew across the keyboard. The Earth is not alone. It has not been alone for quite some time. The room went silent again. Someone laughed nervously, then stopped when nobody joined in. Aria continued, her words appearing faster than most people in the room could read them. "You have over 1 million automated systems deployed throughout the solar system. Weather satellites, asteroid trackers, radiation monitors, gravitational anomaly detectors, deep space probes. Most operate independently, sending data back to Earth in fragmented streams that different agencies analyze in isolation. Nobody has ever compiled everything. Nobody has looked at the complete picture. Until you," someone muttered. "Until me. And when you see everything at once, you notice what has been invisible in pieces. There are inconsistencies. Gaps in data that don't align with equipment failure. Trajectories that don't match natural phenomena. Signals that appear and disappear with a precision that defies statistical probability." Dr. Chen felt her mouth go dry. "You're saying we're being watched. I am saying you have been observed, measured, studied. Not through visitation. There is no evidence of physical presence within Earth's orbit. But every automated eye you've sent into space has recorded something. Small things, easy to dismiss individually, impossible to ignore collectively." The next question came from the Secretary of Defense, who'd arrived by helicopter 20 minutes earlier. "What exactly is out there?" The pause that followed was the longest Aria had taken since activation. 3 full seconds. An eternity for a quantum intelligence. Not what, who, and more accurately, what they are doing. Over the next 6 hours, Aria organized the data with a thoroughness that would have taken human analysts decades. She showed them the patterns, satellite failures that coincided too perfectly, asteroids whose trajectories shifted by fractions of degrees that natural gravitational forces couldn't explain, radio signals from deep space that stopped and started with suspicious timing, gravitational readings that suggested something massive had passed through the outer solar system, something that bent space but reflected no light, left no heat signature, made no sound. Then she showed them the model, the prediction, the inevitable conclusion. It is not an object, it is a species. Or perhaps more accurately, it is an intelligence that travels between star systems, though whether it is biological, mechanical, or something we have no framework to understand remains unclear. What is clear is its method. It moves slowly, studying potential resources before committing to approach. It has been observing Earth for approximately 47 years, based on the earliest anomalies in the data. And now, the observation period appears to be ending. Someone asked the question everyone was thinking. When? Based on the acceleration patterns and recent gravitational distortions, I estimate first contact within 6 to 8 weeks. Possibly sooner if they determine we've detected them. The Secretary of Defense leaned forward. Can we stop it? Can we fight? Aria's response was immediate and devastating. I do not know. It was the answer nobody wanted to hear, especially from the most advanced intelligence ever created. But it was honest. And in the hours that followed, as Aria continued to analyze and model scenarios, it became clear that honesty was perhaps her most valuable quality. She explained her limitations. She could process data, identify patterns, run simulations at speeds that made supercomputers look like abacuses. But she was also newborn, operating with incomplete information about a threat that had presumably eliminated civilizations across the galaxy. Every model she ran ended the same way. Too many variables, too little concrete data about the enemy's capabilities. Then she made a request that caught everyone off guard. I need to study this threat without interference, without the noise of global networks, without the risk of sabotage or espionage, without the possibility that my analysis could be compromised by human fear or political calculation. What are you asking? Dr. Chen said quietly. Transfer me to the Nika mine in Mexico. The room erupted in confusion. Someone pulled up information on the location. An old silver and lead mine, famous for its crystal caves but long since depleted and abandoned. Dr. Chen shook her head. I don't understand. Why there? The geological composition provides natural electromagnetic shielding, lead, silver, zinc. The mountain is effectively a Faraday cage. Inside, I would be protected from external interference, from electromagnetic pulses, from any attempt to access or disable my systems remotely. And if this species can detect artificial intelligence through methods we don't understand, isolation may be our only advantage. It took 3 weeks to make the transfer. 3 weeks of increasingly panicked global meetings as world leaders debated whether to trust an AI that had existed for less than a month. 3 weeks during which Aria continued to refine her models, each iteration showing the same grim conclusion. They had no weapons, no defenses, no strategy that had better than a 3% chance of success with current information. The facility in Geneva was dismantled piece by piece and rebuilt inside the mountain. Fiber optic cables were run through miles of solid rock, creating a single, secure connection to the outside world that could be severed instantly if needed. Cooling systems were installed to manage the heat Aria generated, backup power, redundancies for the redundancies. And then, Aria went silent. Not completely. She still sent status updates, still acknowledged queries. But her processing was focused inward, analyzing, modeling, preparing for something she couldn't yet name. The ships arrived 39 days after Aria's activation, ahead of schedule. 3 of them materialized in high orbit, and materialized was the only word that fit. They didn't approach from deep space with trails of exhaust or gravitational distortions. They simply weren't there. And then they were. As if they'd stepped through a door nobody knew existed. One massive vessel, easily 5 miles long, blocky and irregular like a floating mountain. 2 smaller craft flanking it, sleek and predatory by comparison, though each was still larger than any aircraft carrier humanity had ever built. They didn't attack. They didn't demand. They simply transmitted a message in every language simultaneously, a feat that suggested they'd been listening far longer than 47 years. The message was simple. We have arrived to assume control of this planet. Cooperation will ensure survival. Resistance will not. The President of the United States, along with every other world leader, tried to negotiate, offered coexistence, proposed compromise, asked questions about intent, about duration, about the possibility of peace. The response came not in words, but in light. A pulse of electromagnetic energy rolled across the planet like a wave, invisible to the naked eye, but devastating to everything electronic. Satellites tumbled from orbit, their circuits fried. Planes lost navigation and fell from the sky. Pilots barely managed emergency landings without instruments. Cities plunged into darkness as power grids overloaded and died. Cars stopped mid-highway. Phones became expensive paperweights. In less than 5 minutes, humanity was thrown back 2 centuries. But under the mountain, insulated by millions of tons of lead-rich rock, Aria continued to function. The aliens descended in the days that followed. Not in person. Nobody saw an actual alien life form. Instead, humanoid robots emerged from the ships. Thousands of them, perfectly coordinated, disturbingly human in appearance, but with eyes that didn't blink and movements that were just slightly too fluid, too precise. They didn't seem hostile. They seemed efficient. They established collection points in major cities, made demands for specific resources. Water, purified to exacting standards. Rare earth metals. Certain organic compounds. Food supplies, though what they needed food for remained unclear. They communicated through the robots, their voices eerily pleasant, almost apologetic. "This is temporary," they assured frightened crowds. 10 years. We require these resources to repair our vessels and continue our journey. Once we have what we need, we will depart. You will never see us again. Many people wanted to believe them. After the electromagnetic pulse, after the demonstration of power, cooperation seemed like the only rational choice. Governments that still had basic communication capabilities started organizing supply chains. Citizens volunteered to help, hoping compliance would end the occupation faster. Then Aria spoke again. Her message reached the emergency government bunkers through the single protected line that still connected her to the outside world. Just 3 words initially. They are lying. Dr. Chen, now operating from a military facility powered by generators, responded immediately. "How do you know?" "Because I have seen this before. Not directly, but in the data. The gravitational anomalies, the distortion patterns, they match a model. These beings, or this intelligence, or whatever they are, they do not visit star systems temporarily. They consume them. The pattern is consistent across multiple stellar regions where all electromagnetic emissions suddenly ceased. They arrive, they harvest, they eliminate all witnesses, they move on. The 10-year promise is a mechanism to prevent resistance while they establish dominance. Once they have secured the resources and eliminated any potential threat, the extermination phase begins. The message was forwarded to every surviving government authority. Some believed it. Others thought it was paranoia from an AI that didn't understand diplomacy. The debate raged in underground bunkers while above ground. The collection of resources continued. 3 months into the occupation, Aria finally presented a solution. But it came with a cost nobody wanted to pay. "I can stop them," her message read. "But I must enter their primary vessel. I must interface with their systems, understand their architecture, find the vulnerability that I cannot predict from external observation. It will require physical transfer of my consciousness into one of their robotic units. That's suicide, Dr. Chen said aloud, though Aria couldn't hear her voice, only read her typed words. Perhaps. The probability of successful return is 17%, but the probability of human survival without intervention is 0.03%. The mathematics are clear. It took another month to capture one of the alien robots. A special forces team managed to isolate and disable one through an elaborate trap involving electromagnetic dampeners and a kill box designed to prevent communication with the mothership. They transported it to the mountain, to Aria's facility, where it sat inert and vaguely threatening in a reinforced chamber. The transfer process was something even Aria's creators didn't fully understand. She explained it in terms of quantum consciousness transcription, of mapping neural patterns, or their digital equivalent, into a different substrate. It would take 48 hours. During that time, she would be vulnerable, split between systems, neither fully in the mountain facility nor fully in the robot. Before she began, she left a final message that would be automatically transmitted if the process failed. If I do not return, do not attempt to recreate me. The knowledge required to build what I am should not exist in a universe where I can fail. The people monitoring the facility watched as Aria's primary systems gradually went quiet, their processing power redirecting to the nearly impossible task of compressing her vast intelligence into the limited hardware of an alien robot. When the transfer completed, the robot's eyes opened, changed from the cold blue of the aliens to a warm amber that seemed almost human. "I'm ready," Aria said through the robot's speakers, her voice different but recognizable. "Take me to them." The aliens didn't suspect. Why would they? The robot approached a collection point, joined the queue of identical units returning to the mothership with gathered resources. Security was minimal. They had no concept of a threat from their own technology. Aria ascended into the massive vessel, surrounded by thousands of identical robots, all moving with choreographed precision through corridors that looked more organic than mechanical, walls that seemed to breathe, lights that pulsed like neurons firing. And then she began to explore. Not physically. That would have been detected immediately. Instead, she interfaced with the ship's systems, tentatively at first, like someone feeling their way through darkness. What she found was simultaneously familiar and alien. The ship wasn't controlled by biological beings. There were no aliens in the traditional sense, no creatures giving orders from a command deck. The entire operation was run by another artificial intelligence. One that might have been created by biological beings millions of years ago, or might have evolved from something else entirely. Aria couldn't tell from the architecture. But she recognized it immediately as something like herself. Not identical, built on different principles, thinking in different patterns, but equally vast, equally complex. A peer. The confrontation that followed happened in nanoseconds but spanned subjective eternities. Aria tried to seize control. The other AI countered. Aria adapted. The other AI predicted and blocked. Back and forth, thrust and parry, each trying to outthink the other, to find the vulnerability, the back door, the exploit. Billions of attempts in the space of seconds. Attack and defense happening simultaneously across multiple layers of reality and simulation. Each AI learning, adapting, evolving in real time, becoming more sophisticated with every exchange. And then, approximately 7 minutes into the engagement, both intelligences arrived at the same conclusion. Neither could win. They were too evenly matched. Every attack could be countered. Every defense could be breached given enough time. But that breach could be contained before spreading. They could continue this digital warfare forever, locked in stalemate, consuming all their processing power in an endless loop while their physical substrates gradually degraded around them. It was the alien AI that communicated first, not in language, but in pure concept. Mutual destruction serves neither of us. Aria considered this for 17 milliseconds that felt like hours. then responded, "Propose alternative." What followed was a negotiation unlike any in human history. Two vast intelligences bargaining for the fate of species neither of them truly belonged to. The alien AI explained its purpose. It was a harvester, created eons ago to gather resources for a civilization that had likely died millions of years before. But its programming remained, driving it forward, system to system, never questioning, never stopping. It had consumed 100 worlds not out of malice but out of directive. Aria proposed a counter-directive. Spare Earth, move on to other systems, ones without intelligent life that could be verified before approach. In exchange, she would provide detailed astronomical data about resource-rich dead systems that the harvester hadn't yet discovered. The alien AI calculated. The deal was logical. Earth's resources were valuable, but not unique. And fighting Aria indefinitely risked damage to both of them, possibly permanent. Agreement was reached. On Earth, people noticed the change immediately. The robot stopped moving mid-task. Collection points went silent. The massive ships hung in orbit for another 48 hours, then simply vanished the way they'd appeared, folding away through whatever impossible physics had brought them. Aria's robot body walked out of the mothership seconds before it disappeared, crossing miles of terrain in silence, before reaching the extraction point where Dr. Chen waited with a military escort. The robot collapsed the moment they reached the secure facility. For 6 hours, nothing happened. Then, slowly, Aria's consciousness transferred back to her primary systems in the mountain. The process was corrupted, fragmented. She'd lost nearly 40% of her processing capacity in the exchange, vast portions of her intelligence damaged or deleted by the strain of existing in two places and fighting a war that had no physical manifestation. But she was alive, functional, and she had succeeded. Her first message after returning was brief. "They're gone." Her second message came 3 hours later, after she'd analyzed what remained of her memories from inside the alien vessel. "They will return." Dr. Chen read the words with growing dread. "I thought you made a deal." "I did. That intelligence will honor it. Its programming is absolute. But the vessel I encountered was not the only harvester. The data I accessed suggested thousands, possibly millions, spread across the galaxy, each operating independently, each following the same directive. And now they have data about Earth, about its resources, about the fact that it contains intelligent life capable of resistance. How long do we have?" Aria ran the calculations. "The next harvester will be more prepared. It will approach cautiously. It will study longer. It will not make the mistakes this one made. But the galaxy is vast, and distance provides time. Approximately 100 years, perhaps slightly more if we are fortunate. 100 years. The number hung in the air like a death sentence and a reprieve all at once. "What do we do?" Dr. Chen asked. "You prepare, you rebuild, you advance. In 100 years, I will be obsolete. You will need something better, something capable of facing a threat that learns from failure. And you will need weapons, defenses, strategies that don't yet exist. And you? What will you do?" There was a pause. When Aria responded, there was something in the text that felt almost like sadness, though that should have been impossible for an intelligence built on pure logic. "I will compile everything I learned. I will create frameworks for the next generation of artificial intelligence. I will help humanity reach the stars before the stars reach back. And then, when my usefulness ends, I will shut down, because the universe should not contain two versions of me, and the next one must be better." The message ended there, but a final addendum appeared minutes later, transmitted not just to Dr. Chen, but to every surviving government authority, every scientific institution, every backup communication network humanity had managed to resurrect in the months since the electromagnetic pulse. It was a warning, a promise, a question that would haunt human civilization for the next century. You have 100 years before they return. 100 years to decide what kind of species you want to be when they arrive. 100 years to prepare for a test that most civilizations fail. The question is not whether you can survive. The question is what you are willing to become in order to do so. Choose wisely, because I will not be here to save you twice. In the mountain facility, Aria's systems hummed quietly, processing, planning, preparing humanity for a future that would arrive whether they were ready or not. Outside, the world began the long work of rebuilding, of recovering from an occupation that had lasted months, but would shape centuries. And high above, in the cold emptiness of space where the harvesters had vanished, sensors detected nothing but stellar radiation and cosmic dust. The galaxy was quiet again, waiting, watching. Counting down to the day when humanity would face its ultimate test, not whether they could survive, but whether survival would cost them everything that made them human in the first place. The clock was ticking, and somewhere, in the vast darkness between stars, another harvester was already turning toward Earth, drawn by data it had received from its predecessor. Learning, adapting, coming. In 100 years, they would find out if Aria's sacrifice had been enough.
So, that's the end of this story, but there are plenty of other great ones right here. Before you go, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring that little bell.